Well, friends, look at what time it is. It is that time where we're here. It is the next gen project manager IG live series, and we're gonna have a ball. We're just gonna have a ball. Mecca is here, everyone. I'm going to pull him up onto this virtual stage platform that we have here on Instagram. But let me just set the stage into what we're doing. I did like a mini IG live last week. This was with my IG live that was supposed to happen with Walter Gaynor. But what happened was is that we had an Instagram issue. So hopefully everything's okay on Mecca's side and my side, and we can get to business tonight. But essentially what I did was I set the stage for the probing question, the question that we're building this whole thing around, which is, what does it take to be a next gen project manager? What I love about this particular series is that we are stepping into future focused training now. So what that means is that there are three particular areas that I have identified as what is taking place in the world of project manager, being a project leader. And I'm expanding what you thought a project manager was, what you thought someone who performed and executed projects, and we're expanding the conversation to really dope people that I know that are out and about creating, managing, and leading out this fantastic work. And so when I reference the word work, I'm talking projects, client projects, programs, initiatives, your podcast, your content, and then we'll get specific from there. So we're going to explore that through leadership, strategy, and execution. I'm going to bring Mecca up, and we're going to have a good time. We're going to have a great time. How this goes. See if we have him on. See if he can pop up. All right. Look who it is.
Hey, Ashley, good to see you. Good to be talking with you.
Good to be talking to you, Mecca. I'm just very excited for this conversation today because I know that I'm a big fan since we last talked of the work that you do. We shared a lot of similarities of the type of work that you do, and I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to the audience, to those that catch us on replay. Tell me, what is it, who you are, what do you do? Yeah, what's your whole thing?
Sure. So my name is Mecca. I am the CEO and founder of Park West Digital. We are a consulting agency that helps other businesses improve efficiency with custom software. So we specialize in automation, databases, and artificial intelligence is something we're picking up now with kind of the big wave of AI that's coming last couple months. So yeah, I specialize in building systems that help people work more efficiently and effectively as a team, and that's my bread and butter.
I like that a lot. So this is a little bit of a wild card question. I don't know if it's wild card, but efficiency versus productivity. Your particular take on that. There's always a thing of how can I be more productive? And then there's an aspect where I've leaned toward how can we be more efficient with either what we have, process, and how we can actually make a direct, I guess, beeline to like a particular outcome. But talk to me about productivity, efficiency, and why you're choosing the words efficiency in the line of work that you do.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important question to ask. And to me, productivity is very simple. It's how much output does your business or process create, and then efficiency is how well do you execute your processes in order to create that output. So the reason why I personally have focused on efficiency over productivity, and it's something I've definitely considered, but the reason is I think it's very hard to scale anything before you've sort of perfected the process of whatever you're doing. So
Yeah.
a lot of our clients will be in the process or in the stages of early growth and trying to grow their business to the next level. but the systems that they have in place, are not, they don't have the efficiency. They don't work well with each other to be able to grow at that level, at a scale, at a sustainable pace. So I think when it comes to efficiency, we're trying to think long term to create
That's right.
sustainable ways for you to increase your productivity. And I believe once you increase your efficiency, productivity is naturally going to increase as a result. So to me, the real crux of the issue is the efficiency first, and then productivity after that.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like in your line of work, when people come to you with with their particular problems, like what are the typical things that they are looking for you to solve?
Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest things is connecting the people in a business, giving everybody awareness over, what needs to be done, who is doing what, when does it need to be completed. That's super important to any type of business, whether you're a remote business, whether you're, in a brick and mortar office. You have to know who's doing what in order to effectively operate as a team, especially if you're distributed. Also, having the ability to understand the insights that are coming out of your business. A lot of people treat their business as a black box, is what I've seen. They don't necessarily know all the inner workings and parts of their business. And so that goes back to the efficiency piece. How do you increase a metric, or how do you increase efficiency without knowing what actually, is inefficient in your business? So yeah.
That's good. I think a couple key pieces too is not putting the business in a black box, number one. And then I think too, in your line of work, this aspect of data. The data, what does the data in terms of the story that it tells? Again, getting back to that efficiency piece so that you can know where to cut the fat, trim the fat, whatever the case is, so that you can be more efficient. I'm interested in you providing, an example of like, what's been in this day and age of like, we're growing to more of a lot of things are digital. You mentioned AI, you mentioned lots of tools, lots of software. To me, where I'm seeing things going is that the work is like becoming more complex, like in terms of, and not complex of like it's bogging people down and like people are becoming inefficient, but like it's not things are not necessarily cookie cutter. They're not like plug and play. Like people are really diving into super important work, and it's multi-layered. So perhaps you can paint a picture for us about strategy, what goes into you solutionizing, that's not even a word, but like you creating a solution to what some of your clients are experiencing and what they need.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the pieces that go into it, the strategy behind it, I think really the first piece is having a very good understanding of the business itself. What is the model of the business? What is the end goal they're trying to create for their clients? Becoming very intimate with their internal processes and how their people work, I think is super important. I think it's also important to show empathy to your clients as well as you're going throughout that process, because they're coming to you with a problem, and you don't want to make them feel as if their problem is a problem. What I mean? It's a challenge that you can solve together, but you don't want to make them feel bad about that in a sense. So I think being able to understand the business, understand the people behind the business, and understand the end goals that they're all trying to accomplish together. Everybody within the business has their own personal motivations. The CEO wants one thing, the person, on the day-to-day doing the day-to-day work wants a different thing. So figuring out how to make them all kind of sing together well is, I think, important, and knowing what they all are looking to get out of whatever process you're trying to improve is also important as well.
I think that's really good. And I think it just in my own experience too, I don't ever find, not ever, but as I continue to build upon my own experience over the years, I realized that the building of the thing is actually not like the that's like going to give me most heartburn. It's actually everything else. It's like
Yeah.
just what you said. It's leaning into the empathy. So I think years back, I think when things were very much like, here's the standard process and like here's what we're doing, and so you did have a sense of like there was no room for, I think, the innovation piece. I don't think there was a room to explore. I think there was also a very like, this is what it is, and so I don't really care what you think. And so I think now, even whether it's corporate or you're in an entrepreneurship space, there is more factors that come into it. Like you said, people are coming to you, Mecca, and they're just like, like things are just a bit haywire, or like, this is what's giving me a headache. And there are many times that we see, and you could maybe give me some examples of this, where there are things that are actually broken and wrong, right? And, and it's not the right way, but it's our jobs as those ones that are the other, the other side of it, to not make them feel like you done messed up, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, so walk us through even like those first conversations around like, what is it they're trying to do? Because I find that to also be like a mini bump sometimes. Like, what's the goal? How do you help to pull that apart?
Yeah, so it looks a little different on every project, but I think where it all
Mm-hmm.
starts off is that first conversation, that initial consultation that we do. That in that first call, that's where I'm trying to figure out not only what to trying to build, but I ask them about their desired business outcomes. I
That's
ask them
good.
their motivation for why they need to do this now. Is there some sort of urgency behind this project? I ask them, why do they want their solution to look in this particular way versus
Mm-hmm.
another way. So I want them to come to me with what they're looking to build, but I also want to help them think about the larger, bigger, context and picture that solution is gonna fit into. So I think having those conversations early, and then as you move throughout your project, I think it's important to set those
That's
objectives or
good.
goals, those larger things that you're trying to hit, those big deliverables, and knowing the reason why you're trying to hit those deliverables, being very clear and communicative upfront about those things is always helpful. To me, project management is at the core of project management is communication in my eyes. You have to communicate with your
That's so good.
team, you have to communicate with your client, no matter what system or tools you use, no matter how much automation you put in there, it's all about communicating what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, how do we need to get it done? What are the constraints we need to get it done within? All those different questions. So yeah, communication to me is at the core of everything I try to do. And I think when people feel as if you can communicate well, they feel more confident that you're going to get them to a solution that they actually, will serve them in the end. So I think the more you can communicate, you don't even need to be a perfect project manager. You don't have to have read the PEM book from
Okay.
beginning to end,
Not like me. Yeah, you do not.
You don't have to. I'm not saying it won't make you a better project manager, but I
Uh-huh.
think there's more soft skills that are more important that I've tried to prioritize, and I think that they've served me well to prioritize them over maybe some of the more hard certifications and things that that are out there too. So got to find that perfect balance of the hard skills and then the soft skills that will make the whole project work well together.
I like that a lot. You talked about the empathy piece, the communication piece, and this aspect of leadership comes really into play all throughout the project, because again, the company, the entrepreneur, that organization that's coming to you, they're looking for you for the solution, but there's other pieces to it. And so I like what you said about the communication piece. How do you, in terms of the communication, are you doing it like synchronously? Like, are you on calls a lot in the beginning? Do you switch to a more async approach? How does that work in your in the work that you do?
hmm So it depends on the kind of project. A project that is more long term, I try to set up at least one weekly sync with
That's
the main
good.
stakeholder every week. Even if we don't have a lot to talk about, it's great to show your face and know that, and so they know you're
That's
doing
right.
something behind the scenes.
That's right.
A lot of the project management work is not stuff that the client will ever see, but you know, being able to talk to them and just kind of keep them in the loop is super important. So I think having some sort of weekly sync is something I try to do on every single project. In terms of more asynchronous communication, you know, I use email and Slack, you know, pretty heavily.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually like to create a channel for, you know, whatever client that I'm working with in my
I
own
love
Slack.
that.
You know, with
Mm-hmm.
Slack Connect, it's a great feature. I've got so many people in our Slack now just because of that. And I think I think it's really important to compartmentalize your communication. You know, that's something I learned a while ago. And so Slack works great to do that. Email, I don't, you know, I think a lot of people naturally just navigate to email, but so I'm always happy to move everything or talk back and forth via email. But I think having something where you can quickly communicate back and forth like Slack is great. And then when it comes to supporting them live on calls that aren't really, you know, more ad hoc and are less scheduled, I personally, people may disagree, but I think where I'm at right now, my prioritizing the customer experience is most important to me. So I try to allow clients to book. I don't try to put restrictions on any client that wants to talk to me about something.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have a question or they have some sort of issue with their system, or they want to start a new project, I'm the kind of person that I want to schedule that today or tomorrow. Like, I want to get on the call as soon as we can, you know, make you feel like you're getting the help you need. And you know, I think it's easy to say, hey, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to allow people to book on my calendar like that. But I try to make the time, you know. So I think that's another strategy that has helped that communication piece as well.
So, and why I love that you said that is because I think that we have shifted more in, especially pandemic and post-pandemic. I think we got into a pattern of, we were very open, and then people said, oh, I need boundaries around the time. And not to say that you can't or you shouldn't, but there is a bit of, I like this aspect of opening up the window a bit more so that it doesn't feel so formalized because you started the project. So if someone does have a question, man, I have an idea for Mecca. Should I Slack it? But I just want to talk it through. Sometimes the talking it through is, I think, more quicker and efficient because you can be able to just kind of share the screen, or you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like just be able to ask more tangible questions, unless you are really, really good at that written communication where you can pop out those questions to kind of get what you need. I really, really like that a lot. I think that's a huge takeaway. And for those that may see this on the replay, you know, Mecca's emphasizing the aspect of, yes, you're skilled in that technical area, but that those soft skills need to also be pushed to the forefront. Some of those leadership skills they need to know. Something else something else I want you to expound upon too, which is talking through like rerouting the strategy. Like what happens as you are, because give me an example, like building something within Airtable or connecting other softwares together. When have you started to execute on the work and then you've been like, I think we might need to pull back? And like, what has that been like?
I'm trying to think of an example of when you kind of had, you know, a case where I guess maybe the scope wasn't as clear up front, and so we got to the, you know, farther down the line and realized, hey, this is more than we expected. There's a recent project we're working with, actually an active project with a marketing company, and essentially they wanted us to integrate a different team's task task management system into the main reporting workflow. And so at first I thought it was going to be easy. It was something where we, you know, it felt straightforward, but there was technical issues as we went through it that were like, okay, this is a little bit more than we thought.
Sure.
And to me, we definitely had the communication that, hey, this is going to be a little bit longer than we expected.
Yes.
But in my opinion, that's my problem, not the client's problem. And so and my goal is next time, hey, how do I actually improve my scoping system so that I don't run into that problem again? Since it wasn't something that was huge, like it wasn't going to take 4 weeks to do. It was more like, okay, we thought this was going to take a few hours. This is actually probably going to take a week. Since it was something like that, I wanted to, like I said, give the best client experience possible. So, we just handled it. We took care of it. I don't think they ever knew that, hey, this actually took longer than we expected.
Nice.
We kept it at the cost that we quoted them at for that as well. And it was something that, again, I wanted to keep the process as streamlined and as, as I guess as few roadblocks to getting to the next part of the project as possible. So, my goal is always to think long term with any of my clients. We might be doing something this week, but I want them to stay with us for the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So
nice.
I'm willing to give up some of that. I guess I'm technically paying to do something that they're not paying us to do in that sense. So I'm willing to give that up front. Because I feel like I'm building goodwill over time.
That's good.
So that's my thoughts on that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think and even when in your scheduling of that, because that just goes back to some things that you can't control. Sometimes there is a you don't know until you know type of thing. So when you're building out even a schedule, tell me how do you do that? What tool are you using? Do you already have things that are already templated out? Typically, like what does that look like so that you can, and then how do you allow for like a little bit of wiggle room before deadlines and things like that? Like how does that come into play?
So the way that we work, we structure our work in what's called sprints. So, agile methodology pretty much. So we'll do like a 2 to 4 week sprint. We'll scope. The way that we work, we put everything that we work on as user stories. So we'll scope our user stories. We'll give a level of effort estimate for each user story based on how much time we think it'll take. And then, based on all the aggregation of all those user stories, we can kind of tell, okay, we expect to spend this much time. We've already set the date up front, which is 4 weeks from now. Let's have a meeting every week and just make sure we're continuing to track towards that deadline. And things that come up, the things that usually come up are additional requests rather than kind of like things that are, originally scoped that just take longer. Most of the time we're able to pretty much finish anything that's scoped within that time period because I like to overestimate how much time it'll take rather than try to get it exactly right. So in those cases where a client will ask for something new, again, I try to be as accommodating as possible. So, we'll try to build it into the schedule if we can, but we always leave that as like a last priority unless it's something that we think is critical to the function of the system. So it all goes back again to communication. If it's so critical that they do need it before, X date, or they do need it by the deadline, or they do need it in whatever launch that they're going to be doing, but it's expected to take longer, then, I'll communicate that to them. I'll say, okay, we think this is probably going to take an extra week. If you're okay with that, we can bump this out a little longer. It's going to cost this much, but it's a little bit of a slippery slope because you kind of run into that scope creep issue, and then they might add another thing, another 2-3 things, and now your things.
I tell you what, yes.
It goes from a week, 2 weeks to 2 months, and you never knew it. But we've never had anything that was that crazy, and I think the way that we work, we have like an initial build, so that's very much time boxed, and then ongoing maintenance. So if they wanted to continue building on it, it's more of on a rolling basis. The deadlines aren't as hard because most of the systems that we're building, it's like, the system's already in use. We're just trying to make an improvement to it at that point. So I think that ends up working well for us. It's just, okay, how do we manage these enhancements that you want to have versus the enhancements every other client wants to have, and make sure that we're still delivering it in a reasonable amount of time. So usually if we can complete a request within about 2 to 3 weeks of what a client has asked for, at the latest, they've never complained about the timeline on that aspect. So, but I think, again, that comes back to the communication. I think a lot of people have hard deadlines because it helps them feel like, the project is going well, if we hit our deadlines, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think finding other ways to just ensure that you are actually moving towards the goals, even if the deadlines have to shift a little bit. I think that's a really important strategy, because at the end of the day, you're working with people, and people know everything's not going to be perfect all the time. It's just, what do you do when things aren't perfect? Do you tell them that, or do you try to cover it up and act like it's not happening? So the more communication, the better, in my experience.
I think you said a few things that I think were super powerful, which was one is a key part of strategy is knowing what the methodology you're going to use, whether it's going to be like a phased, sequential. You're in that field where you're going to be doing more agile, you're working on the more sprints. And so I was trying to test my little knowledge really quickly, because you mentioned user stories, and I think I have been on my own journey. I think I even mentioned to you one time about studying products, studying agile, to see how could I start to implement and intersect in the work. Again, the efficiency piece. You may not just have something that is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and so on. But even with user stories, I think we need to use them more in our work. So let me see I want to tease this out with you, because the whole premise of user stories is putting these feature requests out in the forefront to say, for this app or whatever you're going to build, or maybe it's like something with an Airtable, I want X to happen in, XYZ, and so what's cool about that is it helps, I think, and you answer this question, you're more familiar, because you're doing user stories, you have to be as specific as possible with your requirements. Is that correct?
Yeah, you definitely have to be specific, and we also try to get our clients to write user stories as well. So they also have to be knowledgeable about how that process works. So
yes,
we also provide our own materials to train them and teach them how to do that themselves, because the more they can understand how to write their own requirements, the more that we can just focus on building, and they can focus on envisioning what we want to build, what they want to build.
Oh, that's good. That's a nice little gem. Having them, well, because I think what often happens in this, because you mentioned scope creep. So here's where I think sometimes things get a little topsy-turvy, is we're building things out in a contract, or we're automating whatever that is, we're signing things away, and then once we get to the point of like the building, or the creating, then all of a sudden, and I've seen this because it's happened to myself, then somehow the requirements, all of a sudden we start just going left into a different, because we talked about, I've changed my mind, or whatever, I thought about this. But I like the aspect of, hey, let's sit down, or you email me, or however, your list of requirements, and we'll train you on X, Y, and Z. And that process helps I love that. It's like, that's you collaborating with the client. That's pretty smart. That's pretty smart.
I think it's one of the reasons why, again, it helps with the communication from the very start.
Yeah.
And I think it
that's good.
The thing I like the best about user stories is that they answer 3 very specific questions, which are, who do we need to build this for?
Yes.
What are we building in this, like what experience they want to have after we built this feature, and then what is the benefit that they get out of that feature that you're building. So I think answering those 3 questions, having them think about those 3 questions, really helps them know, okay, we should prioritize this over this. We actually don't need this very much. We would rather have that. And having it in a way that it is very understandable from their perspective, so they know what they're getting out of this process. And then from our end, we know exactly what they need to actually experience at the end of the day. So all the technical complexity that goes into it, or it's kind of like abstracted away from their point of view, that's for us to figure out. They just need to focus on, hey, give me the vision, give me the experience, and then we'll build it for you,
That's good. That's actually really good. when you are recording that, what are you using? Would you use Google Sheets? What you put in Airtable? What y'all do?
So so we have a template and like an SOP that we create for new prospects, which we send out after our consultation. So after that consultation, they get that SOP. It tells them exactly how to write their user stories, and then it has a link to the Google Sheet template that has all the
Nice.
user story structure based on the SOP that we gave them beforehand. So once they fill out that template, we import those user stories into our own Airtable system, which is how we manage our operations. And so that gets tracked like in our product backlog,
Mm-hmm.
So when
Yeah.
anytime they want to build
Yeah.
anything in the future, they have that list of
Yeah.
wish list already
Yes.
there. We can just pull from it and continue building. So that really helps us continuously add value over time, because we know, hey, you're thinking about this in the next 3 months. Let's figure out how we can build it, and we can, plan to build it, schedule in the build of it as well.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool, Mecca. Favorite project, either this year or even last year? What's been something that's really just brought you a lot of joy that you were like super proud of?
Yeah. So my favorite project was the Grassroots Grocery project that I worked on beginning of
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
Grassroots Grocery is a nonprofit last mile food delivery, a nonprofit in New York City. They actually help distribute food all across the New York metropolitan area.
Wow.
And they're actually working on a few partnerships where they're going to be getting produce from essentially the biggest produce markets in the city to distribute it as well. So
Wow.
there's a waste management piece. There's a lot of logistics that go behind
Mm-hmm.
it, and there's also like a marketing component to it. And what we ended up helping them build or rebuild, they had a system before, and we helped them rebuild it so they can continue to scale. But we helped them build essentially their operations management system that handles all their volunteers, all their events, all of their slot signups, their contacts for the
Wow.
community and whatnot. And so,
That's cool.
yeah, it's been really great to see them continue to grow. And I think after that system was in place, they've been able to more than double the amount of food that they've been bringing in or delivering every month. So I love working with Dan. Dan is the executive director there, and he's always been interested in Airtable and low code. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that for nonprofits, especially, that are doing
Yes.
very unique ways of helping people,
Mm-hmm.
tools like Airtable or low code tools in general allow them to build systems that, would have required a full development team, tens of thousands of dollars to do,
That's right.
and a lot more months to complete than, something like an Airtable based system could help them with.
That's neat. That is so cool. So seeing your work being so impactful, like that's pretty cool. Like being able to see that out there. So that's awesome. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Tech
Thank you.
stack. Tell me about your day-to-day tech stack, and talk a little bit about the AI piece, because part of this aspect of, as I, have the big question of like, what does it take to be, a next gen digital project manager? And, we use that term in a blanketed term because you could be a consultant, an operations, manager or whatnot. But talk to me about, like, for you, like, A, what are you skilling up on? B, what's your tech stack? Yeah. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So tech stack, I like to keep it simple. Airtable is the number one platform that we use, that handles everything related to our operations. So all of our client information, the project information, tasks, deliverables, all that is stored in Airtable, along with the systems that we use to manage our work and, organize the work that we need to do for our teams. So Airtable is number one. For CRM, we use High Level. It's just another one of those great all-in-one tools that I like the price and I like the functionality for. We use automation a lot as well. So
Mm-hmm.
Make is our preferred automation platform.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We also work with Zapier, but I just think Zapier is a little less developer friendly, in my
Mm.
opinion, if you're trying to build more complex workflows. So I choose Make over Zapier. And then user interfaces, I would say the number one is Airtable interfaces. So
Mm-hmm.
once we've built the database, you can always build an interface off of it. And I've actually been rebuilding a lot of our interfaces recently to manage our development process, because it's just gotten more and more complex. And so I really like the way Airtable interfaces allows you to take the data that's already there, and format it the way I want without having to use a whole nother platform. So Airtable interfaces is definitely one of those ones that I think has allowed us to take our databases to the next level, where where I was the only one really working in before, and now I can have multiple people working in the same database without having to overcomplicate their workflow as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's good.
I like to keep things simple for my clients, but I also like to keep things simple for my team. So every time I build something, I'm thinking about, hey, how can I make this as easy for you to use as possible? The same way I would build it for a client to use, for them to be able to use it as easy as possible. So Airtable, Make, and Airtable interfaces are probably the main stack for me. AI wise, that's definitely something that I'm you asked about what am I upskilling on. That's the number one thing I'm upskilling myself on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of research on how to build custom AI systems. How do you fine tune? How do you use embeddings to create more robust responses from whatever model you're using? How do you actually deploy a model and have it accessible via API? So those are all questions that I've just been diving really deep into over the last couple of months, and we've been building out proof of concepts and things like that internally and for clients as well. And we actually just started another big project for AI for one of our clients today. So I'm really excited to see how that one turns out over the next 3 months as we continue to build with them.
Man, I tell you what, you talking heavy, Mecca. I mean, this is some cool work that you do, but also like, this is what I mean by it's more than it's more transformative, right? Like it's so much bigger, and this is why we're doing these particular interview series, so that many people who are either like leading from behind the scenes like we are, most folks are not clued in into like how about like what happens, what's the process, what's the methodology, why we're thinking this way. And I think you've really helped to, I think, paint this picture out of like you said, how to communicate better with clients and leading with empathy, how to determine project strategy. I'd love for you to even just give some advice for those that are out there that are behind the scenes, working on sort of next level of things that they're working on. What are three things that you have learned over these past 6 months that has really helped you grow, in whatever area, right? Yeah.
First thing I would say is be very, very obsessed with your customers' problems.
Yeah.
I think that the more you can solve the problems, the better experience you'll have, the longer relationship you'll have, and the easier everything in the project will flow. So that has helped me not only maintain longer relationships, but also I think earn the confidence of clients before I even start working with them. From that first consultation call, I'm really digging into exactly what pain and what keeps them up at night from the very beginning, because I know that's what we're trying to eliminate. You know what I mean? If you can't eliminate that, then your job isn't done and you haven't hit the mark. So first thing is becoming super obsessed with your customers' problems. The next thing I would say is not to overcomplicate whatever you're doing. I've fallen into the trap myself of trying to figure out all the answers before you
Yeah.
start, or even
Exactly.
and you'll never know all the answers. You just can't. And so I've realized I don't need the answers beforehand, because I can learn the answers
That's right.
through experience. And I think that comes to the third thing, which is like, don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's how you learn. I realized I had to get way more no's to get the number of yeses I wanted. And so not being afraid of rejection, not being afraid of failure, those kind of things will allow you to create or build more creative solutions to the problems that you have, to the problems your clients have. And so, yeah, I think it's super important to keep that in mind. So, yeah, first thing is become obsessed with your customers' problems. Don't overcomplicate it. And then don't be afraid to fail or make mistakes as you go, because that's how we learn and get better. So yeah, and I'll add a fourth one in there, which is just ask for help. Don't
Come on.
I'm definitely more of like a solo kind of guy, but I've realized that there's so many people out there that are way better at a lot of things than me and that have a lot more experience than me. And so the more you can learn from other people, the better. Learn from your experiences, but also learn from other people's experiences. And you'll end up on the right path, and just stick with it, and you'll be where you want to go, I think, if you stick with it enough time.
That's really good. That's awesome. And so as we close out, Mecca, where can people find you? They want to work with you. They just want to start the conversation. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so the best place to reach out would be on our website, parkwestdigital.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Mecca Parker, or on Instagram under the same name. Any channel that you can find me, you can message me there. I also, if you can find my email, mecca@parkwestdigital.com, feel free to send me a message there. So anywhere you can get in contact, I will respond and figure out how I can help you. So if there's a way, I'm sure there's a way. There's always a way.
Y'all gonna need a Mecca in your life. So I just wouldn't delay. Start building a relationship with him.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thank you for those of you who are online and that are watching this. Make sure you share this replay, this particular live, with 3 other people that are, that they may need to hear from, folks that are in the inside. And again, this is future focused training and conversations right now, right? And so this is why it's so important to connect with people who are doing the work in real time, who are building, so that, just like you said, we don't know what we don't know, so we're just going to swap notes so we can be able to understand. And for those of you that are also wanting to see, how is it that I can, enter into community, get more training around this area, I will be sending out some information, building in my text community list. If you text hashtag PM Huddle to 54, it is, I'll just put it in the chat. I just forgot my own number, but I'll put it all in the notes below. But it's through my text message community that I'm building, and I'll be sending out information about the next masterclass and things like that, because we're really going to be diving into some of these topics that Mecca talked about: empathy, communication. We're going to be talking about how to manage and deal with change, and so it's just going to be an awesome time for everyone to navigate with. But let me just pull it up real quick. It is, so it's hashtag PM Huddle to 626-722-5444. Mecca's his IG, and we'll have that information in, I'll save this replay, and so you guys can be able to get that information. So thank you all so much. I've enjoyed this, Mecca. We definitely got to sync up before the end of this year, just to check in and then see what we've learned and where we're growing. So this has been cool.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you about project management. I think project management is in everything, so the more people can pick up tips here and there, I think it's great for everybody. So thank you for what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing more of these sessions and tuning in.
All right. Thank you, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye.
All right. See you.